So the Philadelphia Fusion, I think, are one of the most interesting contract situations because in 2018 you signed 1+1 contracts. I keep saying this, but I feel like I need to keep reiterating it. 1+1s. So at the end of 2019, the Philadelphia Fusion stopped being guaranteed and started on their team option. What else happened at the end of 2019? The Philadelphia Fusion made the grand finals. They felt like they were a great squad, one of the best in the world. They were, at that point, the second best team in the world. Within that one meta, where they were able to play double sniper and really reach their full potential and pop the fuck off, the Philadelphia Fusion were a very good team. And throughout 2018, we saw them hit that potential at various times as well. They made a stage final in stage 2. They showed us what they were capable of halfway through the season as well. So the Philadelphia Fusion, at the end of 2018, their players probably felt pretty confident that if they didn't renegotiate, like Carpe, like EQO, like Neptuno, they could get much better offers. They could have people bidding against each other to be able to get very good offers for 2020. The same kind of stuff that we suspect Hydration or Surefor or Meko, these guys that are free agents at the moment that didn't choose to renegotiate in 2019, tried to ride their success. The problem is the Philadelphia Fusion stonks of these players was like, at the beginning of 2018, EQO and Neptuno were nobodies. They were nobodies. They got picked up out of nowhere. Nobody was talking about EQO at the beginning of 2018. Philadelphia Fusion were the last team, as far as I'm aware, Philadelphia Fusion were the last team to finalize their roster for 2018. So that means that all of these players could have been picked up by any other team in the league. But instead, the Philadelphia Fusion, the last team in the whole league, came in and picked up these players. Now, for some of these people, like Neptuno and like EQO, I've talked to Neptuno, and he said in interviews before, nobody else offered him a spot. Neptuno was one of, if not the best Mercy player, and because Mercy was in the meta the entirety of last year, the best main support that we had in 2018. And only one person gave him an offer. Now, what does that mean from his perspective? If Philadelphia Fusion was the last team to start signing players, and they gave Neptuno an offer, and he had not been given any other offer, it was probably a pretty low offer. The Philadelphia Fusion were able to give him a low offer, and he would jump at the opportunity because he wasn't getting offers anywhere else, and it's like 50 grand, minimum. But as we've seen from the median player salaries, half of the players in the league are somewhere between 50k and 80k. I suspect that players like Neptuno and EQO were on pretty low salaries. Now, because they're free agents now, they probably did not renegotiate at the beginning of 2018. They continued to be paid those relatively lower salaries for how good the players are and wanted a big payday now. They're trying to get other teams to bid over them now. If EQO and Neptuno go over to the Paris Eternal, for example, that would be a big pickup. Those are great, proven players that, are very, very strong and have experience making a grand finals in 2018. These are good players to pick up for a team like Paris, especially because the identity of Paris is very European, and you've got Neptuno and EQO, two outspoken players that can add personality and stuff to your brand. There could be people bidding over them, but I suspect that is what happened with Neptuno and EQO and Carpe. The issue is their stonks started here with nobody talking about them, apart from Carpe. Right? But for EQO and Neptuno, their stonks started here. Their stonks raised when we saw how good EQO was and how good Neptuno was. Their stonks kept going up. When they made the playoffs, their stonks were like up here. But then in 2019, their stonks have gone. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to the risk of not renegotiating your contract. Because EQO and Neptuno would have loved to make another grand finals. And then they would have made bank. I mean, if EQO had the same performance last year as he had this year, and he was a free agent, he would be the hottest free agent on the market. Maybe hotter than Carpe, right? But they didn't have a great season this year. They had a pretty mediocre season. It was all right, but it was pretty mediocre. So these guys, I think, are likely to be shopping around to different places, trying to get the best offer possible. So unlike Meko, where I suspect that he is going back to the NYXL and saying, increase my contract, I'm worth it, I would expect guys like Carpe and EQO and Neptuno to be talking to a bunch of different teams and be saying, who can give me the greatest offer? Like, I'm actually a really good player. I'm proven. You get all of this. You've seen me perform in matches. I'm really good. Which team wants me? That's what I suspect will be happening with Carpe, EQO, and Neptuno. Now, while I think that if Paris has the money, EQO and Neptuno going to Paris would be really cool. Carpe going to London makes so much sense. Makes so much sense. He already is a really good friends with Jonak and Fury. What am I talking about, Jonak? I mean, he is really good friends with Jonak, but is really good friends with Fury. I could see him playing on the London Spitfire. He would fit in Birdwing's position really nicely. Any rumors or whatever about attitude issues or him not really fitting on a team, I think would totally disappear because Carpe's got a would be playing on a full Korean roster at that point. I didn't leak Jonak to London. I just forgot that Jonak was on the NYXL for a second because I botted out. I would be so insanely surprised if Jonak went to London. That would be mind-boggling to me because they would have to trade it. So yeah, I think that Carpe to London would make a huge difference. Now, there's also Sado and Snillo are free agents. I don't know what will happen with those guys. Whenever I've talked to Philadelphia Fusion in the past, they really believed in Sado. Having said that, though, the head coach has just been released, I believe. Where is it? Maybe this hasn't been updated yet. Yeah, Named Hui. So Named Hui was the head coach of the Philadelphia Fusion, and he is now looking for team as of yesterday, actually. So presumably, the Philadelphia Fusion will have a new head coach coming into the 2020 season. I don't know who that's going to be. Whether or not, or like the direction that they take the team in will be up to them. They have a lot of different options for ways that they could go. But, the core of the team, presumably, is going to be Boombox and Poco, because these are the guys that are left under contract. These are the guys that renegotiated longer salaries, and it would be reasonably tricky to find a team to trade them to, honestly. So I could see some of these people that are free agents or team options coming back to the Philly Fusion, but I suspect that a lot of them will find new homes. Yeah, okay. So let's move on to the San Francisco Shock. So the San Francisco Shock, I talked to Andy Miller at the... Andy Miller's the guy that owns the team, or like one of the owners of the team. And Super in my chat saying, that's me. That's Sinatra, you moron. Have you ever looked in a mirror? You're a little blurred little bunch of pixels in the background. No, in the back, you fuckhead, says Super. I can't even tell that that's you. The only way that I can tell that's you is because of your hairline, where you sweep your fringe forwards to try and cover up the fact that you have an enormous forehead like me. You're one of us. Absolute five-head. He is molding out of control. He just sweeps his fringe forwards. Okay. Anyway, so the San Francisco Shock, incredibly talented roster. I agree with Mr. X here. Without a doubt, the Shock have the most talented roster from top to bottom in the league. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Nevix is the only person that hasn't renewed their contract, and the San Francisco Shock want to keep these guys for a long time, so they're all guaranteed contract for 2020, maybe for longer as well. I don't know the length of the contracts for the San Francisco Shock. Nevix is a free agent. Why is Nevix a free agent? When I've talked to the people involved in the San Francisco Shock, they genuinely tell me that they feel bad about having Nevix on the bench and never playing him. This would strike me as a ridiculously bullshit reason from any other team in the league. But when I talk to the people on the Shock, I really feel like they actually think like Nevix is a legit fantastic player and they feel bad just never ever playing him. From what I've heard, the way that the Shock tends to work is that for each of the positions, they don't so much compete for the position as help each other get better. And I think this is the genius of Krusty is that he came in at the beginning of the league in 2019, and he said to the people that are on the bench, you are as much part of the team as the people that are starting right now. We all know that there's going to be meta changes throughout 2019. So you can't just sit on the bench and feel like you're not part of this team. You are really important. I am going to need you later on in the season. So I will use you. You are part of the team. You are as much in it as everybody else. Instilling this kind of atmosphere of everybody being in it at once. There wasn't so much like a starting roster of 6 and a bunch of benched players. It was like everybody helping each other to get really good, which worked phenomenally. And what I've heard about Nevix is that coming into the playoffs when Sigma was being played a lot, Nevix was going to start for them as Sigma. And then a couple of days beforehand, they decided to swap it over so that Choyobin would be the person starting, because Nevix had managed to collaborate with Choyobin to the point where Choyobin had become good enough at the hero. So Nevix was really like leading the charge on Sigma and then helping Choyobin get good at Sigma, and it ended up with Choyobin ended up playing in the playoffs. So I think that's, first of all, wholesome as fuck. Indicates that everybody on the San Francisco Shock has a fantastic attitude to improving, and is one of the reasons why they obliterated everybody else in the league, is because they have a championship mentality, an ability to help each other that isn't just hyper competitive, and they have like a very strong team identity. But also they're professional enough to be able to help each other and not let their egos get in the way and insist that they must be played. From what I know of Nevix, doesn't have an ego at all. Absolutely lovely character. The only question mark around Nevix has ever been his communication. And I haven't actually talked to the Shock guys recently about how that's changed. He used to be a very, very quiet player in the past. I was told that he was better over the last year at communicating and was like in a position where he would be, just a fantastic starting off tank on any other team. But yeah, it's interesting that he is a free agent. I strongly suspect that this is not one of those situations where Nevix is going to re-sign to the Shock. I think they are actively saying we have a beast of a player on our bench who at the moment we don't see getting any game time because Choyobin's that good. So who wants him? Who wants him? Pay us, and you can have one of the best off tanks in the league. But you have to trust us that he's good because you didn't see any match time. Where do I think he could go? Fucking anywhere, mate. Actually fucking anywhere. Nevix is a savant. I truly believe that he might be capable of telepathy. He could play on the Chengdu Hunters and still slam. I believe it deep in my bones. But where is he most likely to go to? Probably like the Houston Outlaws would be a huge pickup, but I don't think he really fits the like team culture of that team. Like Nevix deserves a better team than the Houston Outlaws, I would say. If the Dallas Fuel want to totally rebuild, obviously would be a phenomenal pickup there. The Paris Eternal is the one that springs to mind, though. Paris Eternal have set their identity as a team that's very much built around European talent, and Nevix is Swedish, and he would be a big upgrade, in my opinion, over Finzi. And I think that just makes the most sense, especially if Paris were willing to pay out and go for like EQO, Neptuno, and Nevix, they could be a dangerous team next year. Now, I don't know whether Paris are planning to spend money next year and actually, try and improve. But if they were willing to, Paris could be a dangerous team with the talent that's in the league. The Gladiators, yeah, it's possible that Nevix would make a big addition to the Gladiators as well, but I suspect that the Gladiators are going to go... Do I think they're going to go in a different route? I don't actually know, because Void is a free agent as well. I don't know. I don't really know what the Gladiators are going to be up to. Nevix is overrated as fuck. So I can see that point of view as well. Like, I know that you're just spouting nonsense into the void about Nevix being overrated. Obviously, having a player be rated highly when he's never played, or like he's played very few maps in 2019, is nuts, right? Like, the entire situation from the outside is nuts. If you tried to tell somebody from a totally different esport that you believe one of the best off-tanks is somebody that sat on a bench for the entirety of this season, they would say you were a fucking numpty. But because it's the Shock, and they obliterated everybody this year, they were the best team of 2019 by far, the most dominant team, because Nevix has a history that stretches back to 2016 of always being very, very good, and because he was under the best coaching, just objectively the best coaching in the league in 2019, I think he probably is a very good player. Is he going to revolutionize whatever team he goes to? Probably not. But I would still expect him to be a top 10 off-tank in 2020 if he joined a different team and was starting. So, yeah. I think it's a fair criticism to say, how the fuck do you know that Nevix is any good at all? But I think that on balance, you can have faith that Nevix would be pretty fucking good. Especially if he performed well in trials or whatever, because that's what trials are how you assess new players that would be coming out of contenders anyway, so there you go. Super in chat says, I will say that Nevix really pushed Choi this season. Yeah, I mean, I think that the San Francisco Shock had a fantastic setup where their players were kind of competing and collaborating to make each other better. And also, if anybody is able to push Choyobin at all, they are god tier, because Choyobin is probably the best off-tank that we have in the league. It's either him or Fury. So, there you go.